Welcome to Level Up with Lilit. I'm super excited for today's guest actually because it brings back amazing memories. So I'm going to introduce you to Daniel Rosen. He is actually the owner and founder of Credit Repair Cloud, but there is a story that we're going to share first. So if you guys have seen Price is Right, it is one of the shows that I've watched with my grandmother as I was growing up. I remember two things from that show. I remember Bob and I remember the come on down guy, the voice. And that's the voice that I have here. So I would love to, well, first of all, welcome Daniel. Thank you for coming to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We've had some chats before and I'm really happy that you're here. But I did want to put you on the spot. And ask you if you can give our viewers that voice a little bit, bring them back some memories, some really good time.
Come on down.
I love it. So,
Yeah.
We were just chatting about this. You also did like the whole specs. You read everything at the show.
Oh, sure.
Before you did the come on down, and after you did that, and you were hyping up the crowd.
Yeah.
How was all of that for you? Like, how did you have so much energy?
Well, that was what that's why they hired me. I was full of energy. I should tell
are you
you
still
my,
full of energy like that?
oh yeah, but I should tell you how that all happened and how I started my software company,
Please.
and because it all goes back to when I was a kid, I was really obsessed with things. I still get obsessed with things, but as a kid, I was really into juggling. It's all I would do. I learned how to juggle when I was 10.
Like
And I
on
got-
the street, juggle on the street.
Eventually,
Okay.
I left home at 13 and I made a living juggling on street corners. That's
Wow.
how I made money to eat. And then I learned that if I could make people laugh, they'd put more money in my hat. And that sort of got me into comedy. And then I kept practicing the juggling and obsessing and getting better and better. That's all I did all day. I'd practice 8 hours a day. I became a world champion juggler. And then but I was still on the streets and I wanted to do something big time. I got offered a job in the circus, but I thought that's really gross. So instead I decided I was going to be in the ice capades.
Okay.
So I went to a local skating rink and I said, I'd like to have ice skating lessons, please, because I'm going to be in the ice capades. They said, have you ever skated before? I said, no. And they thought I was crazy. But again, I obsessed and obsessed and obsessed and practiced, and I got into the ice capades. And I did this show. We were in these big arenas, and I was juggling fire and going backwards, so I'd have to skate backwards so I wouldn't burn my face. And it was really kind of neat. I built up this whole act. But I thought it was going to be this positive environment with athletes, and instead they were all alcoholics and drug addicts, and it was a terrible environment.
man.
But I realized I missed the comedy that I'd done on the streets. So I decided I'm going to get really good at comedy. I'm going to leave this. I'll start working in comedy clubs or wherever I can, and I'm going to be on Johnny Carson. So I worked for years in terrible comedy clubs and restaurants and discos where they'd shut the music off and say, okay, it's comedy time.
Have you ever been booed off of stage?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Well, I used to open for bands at the Roxy on Sunset Strip, and they would throw drinks at me. Yeah, but I did every crappy gig, and I got better and better and obsessed over it, and eventually I made it on to Johnny Carson. And I did it several times, and then I started getting a lot of television shows. And then I had this whole long career on television and going and doing my act in Las Vegas and all over the place. I was in a Broadway show called Sugar Babies, and I worked in every amazing theater that I had ever dreamed of. And from the outside, it looked like I had this amazing career. But in reality, I was broke all the time because there were long gaps between gigs. So I was always living on credit cards. And then I got the Price is Right gig, which was my last long-time gig. And that was a lot of fun. And it was fun saying, come on down, and a new car, that kind of, it's a Chrysler Crossfire, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But it was great fun. But what was amazing was I finally had steady money, and I was able to buy this little house. It was a little messed up house in Culver City. But I fixed it up, and I was so proud of that house because I'd finally achieved something. But then, one day, a bank error destroyed my credit overnight. And because of that bank error, all my bills shot up. All the credit cards were maxed out because of working on the house, and I was on a break from The Price is Right, and my bills doubled overnight, and I didn't have that money, and I almost went bankrupt. I almost lost my house, all because of this bank error. And I called the bank, and I told them that, hey, you made this mistake, and they said, sorry, we'll fix it, but it caused this whole domino effect on all my other credit cards. And so I'm sending letters, and I was too broke to hire a credit repair company, so I started to learn about how credit works and how credit repair
repair
works.
your own credit.
Exactly. And I went down this rabbit hole that I never got out of. I learned everything about credit repair. I fixed my own problem. I started helping friends and family, and I started to see how many people had this same problem.
Yes.
And because 79% of credit reports have errors, and those errors can devastate your whole life.
And you don't even know until it pops up in a situation where you really need your credit.
Exactly,
right?
and there's identity theft and all kinds of stuff. And as I'm sending out all these letters and making all these calls and writing all these notes, I'm thinking, this is really, really repetitive work. I bet there's software for this. And there wasn't any. So I thought, aha, I found my way out of show business. I'm going to create the world's first credit repair software. But I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about writing code or software or anything. I don't have a financial degree. I didn't even graduate high school. So I started learning coding, and I'd learn one language for a few months, and I'd realize it wasn't going to do what I wanted, so I'd start another one and start another one. I didn't know that you hire someone.
Okay.
So, but I also kept drawing. I had this in my head. I knew what I wanted to make, so I kept drawing it over and over again like a crazy person. Like there's a movie called Close Encounters where this guy keeps drawing this mountaintop, and he doesn't know why he's obsessed over it. That's how I was with the software, and I kept drawing it over and over and over. By the time I figured out that I needed to hire someone, I had made all the what do you call them?
The wireframe?
Wireframes. I'd made all the wireframes. So we knew what every page looked like.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was really cool. I didn't know that
And
I was
you did
doing...
all this in your basement?
No,
in your
I didn't have
house?
in my house in this weird little room. So
I saw that room in a video, and at some point, like, I want you to explain, like, all of these hobbies that you've had that got you through this process as well, you know, and then that box with the little credit aid that you had to create.
Yes.
Tell us about all that.
Well, that was the first software. It was this little download. It took me about 5 years to make it. I sold it for $20. And it did what it was supposed to do. It created the dispute letters of whatever issue you had on your credit report. But nobody wanted to buy it. Maybe in a good week, I could make $100. It was really, really rough. I did get Fry's to sell it, and they sold lots of them, but they never paid me.
Why is that?
I don't know. They kept saying, it's selling so well. Send some more. Send some more.
You gotta look at your contracts first.
Yeah,
right?
then they never paid me. They paid me a little tiny bit, but finally I got in a fight with them, and my living room was boxes, all floor to ceiling, and I threw everything out and said, I'm never doing this again. But I realized, here's what happened. It didn't work selling it to, another thing I did was I spent a whole ton of money borrowing against my house to run commercials, because I thought this is an infomercial product. So I had a doctor's suit, and I was the credit doctor, and it just failed, and all that money was flushed away. I didn't know about advertising or that you have to be able to track things. I didn't know anything back then. It was like learning everything from the beginning. But what I did learn was businesses like mortgage brokers and realtors and auto dealers, they started asking me for a bigger version to help their clients. And that's when I thought, I need to make something online, and it needs to be a subscription, because I was selling that $20 thing, and I'd never see that person again.
And you were selling it to consumers directly,
Consumers,
right? And
yeah.
now your business model is B2B primarily,
It's only
correct?
B2B.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I thought of this thing. They weren't calling it the cloud yet, but some people were starting to, and I thought that sounds cool. It's going to be credit repair cloud, and I knew it was going to take a lot of money, and I was broke, so I started meeting with investors, and they all said no. So I just thought, I'm not going to leave this room until I figure it out, and I sat there for a good 5 years. I didn't really leave that room very much. I didn't I didn't bathe, I didn't brush my teeth, I didn't sleep much, and slowly I put together a SaaS software and launched it. And people liked it. And it started to get a little traction.
How did you get your first client?
Well, luckily, one for the consumers, businesses had started to buy it, and I had this relationship with a handful of customers who wanted it, and I kept hyping them up that this thing's coming that's going to do all these amazing things, and it got some early traction. I got very, very lucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us where your product's at now.
Oh, now
Yeah.
it's now we've got thousands. It's the software that most credit repair businesses in America run on.
Yeah, and
What
you
I'm-
even help businesses that are trying to get into the credit repair world
Yes.
with the software to be able to power all of that. correct?
Exactly, because it's a whole business. All you have to do is, and it's your own business. All you have to do is add clients, and so we have courses to teach them how to do all those parts as well. But it's like a CRM that does magical things with credit reports. It imports the credit report data from the credit bureaus, shows you in one click all the problems on the report, and then it starts handling the dispute process. It really makes it effortless. Whereas it used to take hours and hours to do this by hand. Now it's a couple clicks. It even sends letters for you, so you don't have to stuff any envelopes.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what impact do you think, and maybe through research and stuff like that, what impact, 'cause I think that, like you said, a lot of credit errors happen even today.
Sure.
Some impact the consumer financially, some may not, it might just be a report on their credit. How do you think your business model helps consumers, like statistically, or what you've been through, exactly how it is from a personal perspective? I personally think a lot of people get helped through credit repair. I think that not everyone's educated on how to maintain their credit,
Right.
and usually it's too late by the time they get there, and when your credit's down, you don't have the money, you can't hire this person, so it's really complicated to navigate through that on top of everything else that life has
Sure.
to offer.
Sure. Well, how it helps is, I mean, there are those errors, and then there's also accurate items. Very often, there's something inaccurate about how they're being reported. And the way the law is written, the Fair
Right.
Credit Reporting Act, if there's an error in how it's listed on the report, even if it's a bankruptcy, if there's some error in there, there usually is, it can be removed with the right letter and with the right persistence. And so the software guides you through all that. But we keep a stat on our homepage of our software, and I believe it's over 12 million credit items improved. Yeah. So
Very nice.
we've helped millions of people.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Okay,
And it
it's
changes
affordable
lives.
for consumers, right? To engage with your clients and help with their credit.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Tell me what you learned in that process. Those 5 years where you didn't bathe and didn't brush your teeth and all of that. It can't be easy. Most people would not go past maybe a year or two. It takes a lot of persistence, a lot of self-motivation to get there. What got you through those 5 years?
I had left show business, and I just could not go back. At that point, I was in my 40s. My act was getting sad, and with the juggling and stuff, which I would still do occasionally between
And I'm
Price
going
is
to
Right
ask
and
you
other
to
gigs.
juggle later. By the way.
Okay, but it was this stuff going on in my head when I would go into a show. I just knew I couldn't go back to it. Some of the gigs were on cruise ships, and it was like being held hostage, and I just burned all those bridges, and I had no safety net, and it had to succeed, and I failed miserably again and again and again and again, but I kept pivoting and adjusting little bits. It kind of like, I mean, it took the first incarnation of our software was 10 years where it went nowhere. And then the second, but then second incarnation, I started failing more often, which really, really helped. And it's kind of like, it reminds me of the story of Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb. And it took him 10,000 tries, as the story goes. And at the end, he said, I didn't feel like a failure. Having it take 10,000 tries, I learned 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb. And it was the same with our software company. Yeah. The biggest thing that led to growth was actually getting help. For the first few years, I was all by myself. I had a website with pictures of people on it, the whole team, but they were all me. I was pretending to be these different people. I was Phil on sales, I was Tammy on support, and it was just crazy. It was so stressful, and then I'm up all night with developers, and then I didn't have money for advertising, so I just thought, and I didn't know how advertising worked. I had already failed so miserably with the TV ads that I just thought, I'll just write all night while I'm sitting here with these programmers. I'll write all night till the sun comes up. And I did that every single night. And then I'd work all day the next day. And eventually, well, you met Keenan.
Yes, I did.
Yes. Eventually, I hired Keenan, and he was in high school. And that was the very first hire. And it was incredibly expensive. He wanted $500 a month, which was more money than I could imagine. But suddenly I had help. I didn't have to be Tammy on support anymore. And everyone hated Tammy.
He was your first employee, and now you have how many employees?
Close to 100.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Good. And he's been with you part of that entire process, helping
Yeah, almost 10 years.
That's amazing.
But a few months in, and he was in high school, but he looked much younger. He looked like he was about 12.
He still looks like he's about 12.
But he started giving me advice. And I started thinking, why is this kid giving me advice? And then a few months later, I started following his advice. We started making a lot more money. And then he started really running the company. I mean, he started telling me, hire people, get more people. And we started to build out departments. And it was, and then I had to change. I had to learn how to grow an organization and what that would look like, and how to do planning and meetings and all this stuff. I didn't have an MBA or anything like that, so I had to suddenly go find mentors and learn how to be a leader, which I'm still learning. I'm still trying to become good at it. It's hard.
Yeah, it's a good thing because, you know, leadership does change over time, just because people change over time, and you have to constantly, the bigger you go, you know, you have to change your style, right? Because everybody has a different, what do they call it, love language when it comes to business and how they like to receive feedback. So you evolve over time. So I think mentorship, whether you're mentoring somebody or seeking mentors, that never stops. And I like people that no matter how successful they get, they're always looking to learn and evolve in that aspect as well.
Sure.
Let's talk about advertising. So we talked a little bit about when you were consumer facing, you didn't have the money or the ability to do advertising for consumers. Now you're a very nice sizable company, B2B. Obviously, there's two different types of advertising for consumers and businesses. How did you figure out on the business side?
It's easier.
Is it?
It's way easier. Oh, at least for me, it's way easier. Yeah, you just have to. Businesses all want the same thing. In the beginning, I thought it was about money, but our customers really want to make an impact and they want to change lives. And that's who comes towards us. But how did I nail that?
Do you think your personal experience made an impact when you're speaking with other businesses?
Oh, absolutely.
And they know why you started this business?
Absolutely. And then they can relate to me.
Exactly.
Because they've been through the same hell. Most of the people who use our software have had terrible credit trauma. The whole credit system is designed to hurt people. It's really
Right.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it defines you too. That's the thing. It defines you, but it's really hard to keep it healthy.
Yes.
For many people, it doesn't even matter where you're at in your career. It's just really hard. The busier you are and the higher up you are in your career, you also don't have time to manage constantly. You're not looking through your credit cards every single day to make
Right.
sure there's no fraud happening. But it's an amazing thing to have the ability to uh, w- fix what defines you as a person, because every decision you make somehow ties back to your credit. You want to rent a house, it ties to your credit. You want to get
Sure.
a gas bill, it could tie to your credit. There's so many different ways now that you could get hurt out there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Even in some states when applying for a job
that's
or an
right.
apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to me recently. I was being, my background check was being run because of an association that I was joining. They pulled up something that I had no idea was on my credit, and I looked into it, and it was the same first name, last name, same year of birth, completely different person. So I had
Mm.
to go through and get this information from the court, then contact the attorney, and eventually they ended up taking it off of it because I had all the documents to prove that this is not my social security number
Sure.
and all of that. But had I not been going through a background check process, I could have been applying for a home loan, and that could have actually rejected me.
Sure.
But they submitted that background check to me so I could review it. Not everybody gets that opportunity. So definitely important to keep monitoring it. I think credit monitoring services are also very important.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What's Credit Repair Cloud up to now?
Well, right now we're growing our product department. So we're hiring many more people. We're now getting into AI, so there's all these cool AI things we're going to use within the software. We also, speaking of credit monitoring, we launched a credit monitoring about a year ago. That's been amazing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have a really big project that's going to help lots and lots of businesses who have customers with credit issues. So that'll be dentists, people who install solar, mortgage, realtors, car dealers, folks like that who need to have a customer with good credit to sell whatever the thing is that they sell. We're going to have a pipeline where millions of people can come in, and if they send their customer, the credit will be worked on and sent right back to them.
Got it.
Yeah, when they're ready
Okay.
to purchase.
Good.
So that's going to help. So that's a big thing. That's our next year project.
Very nice. Well,
Mhm.
good luck with that.
Thank you.
You don't just operate in the U.S., correct? You operate outside of the U.S. as well, employee-wise?
Oh, employees, we've got about 30 in the U.S. and then another 65 or 70 around the globe. We've actually 50 or 60 of them are in India. We have an office in India as well.
Okay.
All our
I
technical
mean,
staff.
it's fascinating. I hope what our viewers get from this is, you can start a business, you can give up pretty quickly. I think most businesses fail because of giving up too quickly and not
Yes.
having a plan in place and trying out different things. I mean, mistakes are the most important part of growth, whether it's personal or business. You just can't let it get you down. So thank you for inspiring me. And hopefully everybody else. But this
Yeah.
was great. I do have a riddle for you to close, though.
Oh, okay.
I got this yesterday, and I did get the answer. If you don't get the answer, it's okay. Our
Okay.
viewers will probably try to get it online. But the riddle is this: what appears twice in November, once in June, and not once in May?
Twice in November, once in June,
And not
and not
in
once
May.
in May. I have no idea.
Okay, good. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm not gonna give the answer. Well, once we play this podcast, people will share their answer, but I'll give it to you later. Don't worry about it.
Okay, awesome.
I do want to thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much for coming to my podcast. I know you have your own. I know you do this, and it's really great that your voice is out there. And if there's anything I could do to help your voice spread, I think what you do is very important.
Well,
So
thank you. And thank you for having me. This was
course.
awesome.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Level Up with Lilit. And if you have any comments, suggestions, or answers to my riddle, please feel free to do so.